Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 23 minutes before 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Tuesday morning. It is time for News Bites. This is the segment of AM Ocala Live where Robin and I read to you the news and we abbreviate it. We cut to the chase, get to the point, and save you some time so that you can hear as many news stories as we can possibly squeeze in a 23-minute segment today. And typically we get between 20 and 25 stories. The whole idea here is twofold. The part one is for us to put news back in News Talk, and part two is for you to be able to catch up on the news from around the world in a short period of time so that you don't have to, if you don't want to, spend all day long watching TV or listening to the radio or flipping through the newspaper or news magazines. And what we do when we read you the shortened version of the news, we also give you the information that will enable you to look up this story. In other words, we give you the news source that we're using here at the source so that we can get these news items to you. And the first one is from ABC News. Public opposition to the new health care law has eased in the past month, enough to help level off Barack Obama's failing popularity, but not to turn it around. 55% of Americans in a new ABC News Washington Post poll disapprove of the president's job performance overall, unchanged from last month's reading as the worst of his career. 43% approve, a scant percentage point from 42% in November. Better for the president is an easing of opposition to the Affordable Care Act, which with attitudes back to a close division on the law. 46% of Americans now support it, with 49% opposed to it. Opposition is down from a record 57% last month amid the new system's troubled rollout.
This is a news item from Fox News. A 13-year-old Northern California girl will be taken off life support today after she was declared brain dead following complications from surgery to remove her tonsils. KTVU-TV reported yesterday that the head of the pediatrics department at Children's Hospital in Oakland, California, had told the family of Yahi McMath that the girl would be pulled from life support because she had been declared dead under California law. This is a quote from Omari Seeley, who is McMath's uncle. "We did not want her to be removed from life support, but the decision is out of our hands because it's been declared a legal death." Under California law, legal brain death must be declared by two separate doctors performing two separate sets of tests at least 3 hours apart. McMath had gone to Children's Hospital Oakland on December the 9th to have her tonsils removed to cure a sleep apnea problem. Seeley told KTVU that McMath had trouble breathing and suffered an enormous amount of bleeding after the procedure. Then on Thursday, McMath went into cardiac arrest and was declared brain dead.
Wow,
Oh
that's
God.
terrible.
That is terrible. 13 years old, goes in for tonsil surgery, and she dies.
Goodness. All right. That's terrible. Out of from ABC News, a 67-year-old grandfather who ran out of gasoline while driving his pickup truck through the freezing cold southern Washington wilderness has been found alive 5 days after he disappeared, and his ordeal may have saved his life, according to his family. After Dick Sturm was rescued last Friday, he was hospitalized and received a CAT scan that revealed a brain tumor and cranial bleeding, according to his daughter, Julie. Make no mistake, being diagnosed with a brain tumor means Stern has another incredible fight ahead of him, but his daughter said his tumor might not have been found had he hadn't gotten lost. If this had not happened, it would have been hard to get him to go to the doctor. Nelson said her father must have gotten confused as he drove on the back roads on Sunday. When his truck ran out of gas, Stern found himself alone in a wooded clearing. On Friday, a bow hunter found him alert and uninjured. Wow.
This is a story from the Associated Press. The 86-year-old man who won Howard Stern's contest for a night with two women from Nevada's famed Bunny Ranch died shortly before his promised prize, according to the New York Daily News. Oh, gee, he couldn't have waited. Johnny Orris was set to have a threesome with two women from the brothel, but he choked on a piece of steak at a dinner shortly before he was set to head over to the Bunny Ranch. Dennis Hoff, owner of the brothel, told the Daily News that Orris died while at dinner with his grandson. According to his grandson, paramedics tried to save Orris but were unable to do so. This is a quote from Hoff. Johnny said that he was prepping for the Super Bowl of sex, and he never got there. Orris won a trip to the ranch as part of a Howard Stern show contest that was meant to promote the film Bad Grandpa. Well, see, that's it. You don't eat before an event.
From the Associated Press, imprisoned former Boston crime boss James Whitey Bulger has been ordered to pay $6 million to the family of a slain Oklahoma businessman, although it's unclear whether they'll ever see the money. The Boston Globe reports that a federal judge ruled on Friday that Bulger must pay the family of Roger Wheeler, who was shot to death outside of his country club in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1981. Bulger was found guilty this year in the killings of Wheeler and 10 others and was sentenced to 2 life terms. He was ordered to pay $19.5 million in restitution to his other victims' families and forfeit $25 million to the government. Investigators found $822,000 in cash stashed in his apartment walls when he was caught in Santa Monica, California, after more than 16 years on the run.
U.S. President Barack Obama meets today with the heads of leading technology companies, a day after a federal judge ruled the government's secret collection of telephone records from American citizens is likely unconstitutional. The White House says Mr. Obama will meet with the chiefs of such companies as Google, Yahoo, Apple, and AT&T to discuss privacy concerns as well as ways to improve the government's healthcare.gov website. Last week, several companies, including Google, Apple, and Microsoft, called on President Obama and Congress to enact new curbs on American surveillance programs they say have given the government too much power. In an effort to prevent terrorist attacks on the United States, the clandestine National Security Agency has for years been collecting a vast stockpile of the phone numbers people have called, as well as the dates and lengths of those calls, although not their content. Yesterday, a U.S. judge said collecting such information is likely illegal under the U.S. Constitution.
And from the Associated Press, the Nashville bar owner charged with second-degree murder in the shooting death of singer and songwriter Wayne Mills was released from jail yesterday. Christopher Farrell's bond was lowered from $300,000 to $150,000 during a 90-minute hearing, according to the Tennessean newspaper. The judge also ordered that Farrell must regularly check in with a bail bondsman and give up his gun collection. He was released yesterday evening, according to the newspaper. Farrell has told police he fatally shot Mills in self-defense early November 23rd after the two got into an argument over the musician smoking a cigarette in the no-smoking section of Farrell's Pit and Barrel restaurant. Mills, who toured for more than 15 years as the lead singer of the Wayne Mills Band, was rushed to the hospital and died that evening.
And the story I did read about Obama meeting today with the heads of leading technology companies was from the Associated Press. I forgot to say that. This is from CTV National News. 4 doctors have penned a newly published editorial that urges the public to stop wasting money on vitamin and mineral supplements following the release of 2 new studies that show that supplements do not prevent chronic disease or cancer. Both the editorial and the studies were published in the Annals of Internal Medicine yesterday. The message is simple. Most supplements do not prevent chronic disease or death. Their use is not justified, and they should be avoided. This is according to the authors. And they wrote this in an editorial titled, "Enough is Enough. Stop wasting money on vitamin and mineral supplements." The authors reference one study that involved more than 450,000 participants, which showed there was no clear evidence of a beneficial effect of supplements on mortality, cardiovascular disease, or cancer. In a new study published yesterday, researchers looked at the effects of a daily multivitamin on preventing cognitive decline among nearly 6,000 men aged 65 and older. A follow-up with the participants conducted 12 years later showed there was no difference in overall cognitive performance or verbal memory between the multivitamin group and the placebo group.
George Zimmerman is selling a patriotic painting on eBay that has already amassed more than 90 bids, pushing the price of the painting to nearly $100,000. Zimmerman's attorney, Jane Weintraub, confirmed the artwork's authenticity when it was put up for auction on eBay. The auction began with a bid of $50, but soared to $99,966 after 98 bids as of 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The signed 18 by 24-inch painting features a blue American flag with a few words from the Pledge of Allegiance: God, one nation, with liberty and justice for all. The word God is on top. One nation is under that, and you're to read it, one nation under God.
Manufacturers of antibacterial hand soap and body wash will be required to prove their products are more effective than plain soap and water in preventing illness and the spread of infection. This is under a proposed rule that was announced yesterday by the Food and Drug Administration. Those manufacturers also will be required to prove that their products are safe for long-term use. Millions of Americans use antibacterial hand soap and body wash products, although consumers generally view these products as effective tools to help prevent the spread of germs. There is currently no evidence that they are any more effective at preventing illness than washing with plain soap and water. Further, some data suggests that long-term exposure to certain active ingredients used in antibacterial products, for example, triglycerin, which are liquid soaps, and trichlocarbon, which are bar soaps, could pose health risks such as bacterial residence or hormonal effects, reported by CNN.
And the next story is from the Associated Press. A keeper at Shanghai's zoo was mauled to death by a rare South China tiger this morning after entering its enclosure to clean it, according to officials and colleagues at the zoo. In brief statements on their Twitter-like microblogs, the zoo and Municipal Landscaping Administration said investigators were looking into the cause of the attack. The administration said the tiger was a 9-year-old male with no prior record of aggression against people. It said the attack occurred at the zoo's breeding facility, where safety procedures are in place. State media reports identified the victim as a 56-year-old man surnamed Zhao. They cited unidentified colleagues as saying the man entered the tiger enclosure to clean it and did not come out again. The highly endangered South China tiger is considered effectively extinct in the wild. After decades of being hunted as a pest, only a few are kept in zoos.
The reign of the windshield wiper could be coming to an end. The McLaren Automobile Company is working on a vibrating windscreen designed to clear away water and debris. This is according to the Sunday Times, who is under the parental guidance of the New York Times. McLaren chief designer Frank Stevenson says the design is based on fighter plane technology that uses high-frequency sound waves to repel rain, bugs, and other potential obstructions. The windshield wiper was invented in 1903, and the concept has changed very little since its introduction. It was originally a hand-cranked device. Electric motors were soon added, but major advancements since have been limited to intermittent systems and rain-sensing capabilities, none of which has affected the basic idea of the wiper blade itself. By removing traditional wipers, the aerodynamics of a vehicle can be improved and its weight reduced. Okay, but while it sounds very advanced, one expert tells the Times that it could require only a small transducer to send 30 kilohertz sound waves across the glass and cost as little as $15 per car. Do windshield wiper blades weigh that much?
I don't know.
This is reported by the New York Times.
So your news, let's see, so far we don't need vitamins anymore. We don't need hand sanitizer. We're not going to need windshield wipers.
That's right.
This is from the Associated Press. The hot molten rock beneath Yellowstone National Park is 2.5 times larger than previously estimated, meaning that the park's supervolcano has the potential to erupt with a force about 2,000 times the size of Mount St. Helens. By measuring seismic waves from earthquakes, scientists were able to map the magma chamber underneath the Yellowstone caldera as 55 miles long, according to lead author Jamie Farrell of the University of Utah. The chamber is 18 miles wide and runs at depths from 3 to 9 miles below the earth, he added, and that means there is enough volcanic material below the surface to match the largest of the supervolcano's 3 eruptions over the last 2.1 million years. The largest blast, the volcano's first, was 2,000 times the size of the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens in Washington state. A similar one would spew large amounts of volcanic material in the atmosphere where it could circle the Earth. It would be a global event, Farrell said. There would be a lot of destruction and a lot of impacts around the globe. The last Yellowstone eruption happened 640,000 years ago. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, for years, observers tracking earthquake swarms under Yellowstone have warned that the caldera is overdue to erupt. Farrell dismissed that notion, though, saying there isn't enough data to estimate the timing of the next eruption.
A wildfire burning near the Central California coastline had destroyed 15 homes and had grown to more than 500 acres in size late yesterday. The so-called Pfeiffer Fire was sparked at around midnight yesterday in the Los Padres National Forest and had grown as large as 550 acres by sunrise. No injuries were reported, but the fire spread quickly across the landscape near the Big Sur region, which is in the midst of one of the driest years in its history. Wildfires are rare occurrences so late in the year. Los Padres National Forest spokesman Andrew Madsen told the Associated Press that one of the homes destroyed by the fire belonged to Big Sur Fire Chief Martha Karstens. Officials were hopeful that they could contain the blaze this week, reported by Fox News.
And you're listening to News Bites. This is a segment of the morning show where Robin and I each weekday morning will read you the news from around the world and shorten it and abbreviate it so that you can listen to it in as short a period of time as possible. We give you the news resource that we use to get these stories so that you can then look up the story if you want to know more about it or share it with a friend. And remember, if you're a business and you'd like to advertise on this segment or any segment on WOCA, come to the studios here at the Paddock Mall and speak to one of our sales executives. They'll tell you how easy it is to advertise and how effective it is, and create a plan so that it'll work for you the best. Or you may want to call us at 732-8000 to discuss the same thing. The next story comes from the Associated Press. The Russian parliament this morning gave preliminary approval to an amnesty that could pardon jailed members of the punk band Pussy Riot, but the move appears to be a largely symbolic effort to placate critics before the Showcase Winter Games. Okay. In the first of 3 votes, Parliament voted unanimously in favor of the bill, a complicated piece of legislation that appears tailored to the band members and some other political prisoners, but that may pass only after the scheduled March release of the 2 band members still in jail. In its current state, it would most likely not free the 30 crew members of a Greenpeace ship arrested after a protest in Arctic waters, or most of the dozens of protesters arrested in the wake of massive protests last year against President Vladimir Putin.
If this was Matt Flynn's last start in place of Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, it was quite a memorable one. Flynn threw 4 touchdown passes in the second half. Eddie Lacy had the winning score on a 1-yard plunge after an interception by Tony Romeo gave them one more chance. And the Green Bay Packers matched the biggest comeback in franchise history in a 37-36 win over the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday. Romo tossed 2 interceptions in the final 3 minutes. The first one giving Green Bay a chance for the go-ahead score with the Cowboys in position to run out the clock with a 36-31 lead. It's not all Romo's fault. Lacy scored with 1 minute and 31 seconds to go for Green Bay's first lead since the first quarter, and after the Packers trailed 26-3 at halftime. This is a quote from Packers coach Mike McCarthy. "It took me everything not to cry." The Packers team won its second straight without Rodgers after going winless in the first 5, including the Chicago game when the star quarterback got hurt. Coach Mike McCarthy continues his quote, "I'm just drained. Just the sheer emotion. It was incredible." Playing on the same field where Rodgers was the MVP when they won the 2011 Super Bowl, the Packers matched the 1982 team in a September game against the Los Angeles Rams for the largest rally. The Packers' record, 7-6-1, kept their playoff hopes alive, with Rodgers possibly returning next week. Reported by CBS News.
And this story is from the Associated Press. Firefighters are digging through rubble to locate 2 people unaccounted for after an early morning explosion ripped through a Birmingham, Alabama apartment building. Fire official told TV station WBRC that at least 7 others were injured in this morning's blast. Authorities say 4 children and 3 adults were taken to hospitals after the explosion, which happened shortly before 3 a.m. this morning at the Gate City Apartments in Alabama's largest city. Fire Chief C.W. Mardis says survivors crawled through fire and debris to get to the street to safety. Authorities say the fire burned for about 2 hours and was extinguished by 6:30 this morning. Martis says injuries and the survivors' injuries are mostly burns and scrapes, and that none appear life-threatening. Dozens of people were evacuated from nearby buildings and are staying at a shelter.
This is a story from Reuters. Social Security is now starting to process benefits for surviving spouses of same-sex marriages. Widows' benefits are payable to individuals who were married to the partner at the time he or she died, as well as those who were legally married for at least 10 years but later divorced. The latter is referred to as a surviving divorced spouse benefit. The maximum widow's benefit you can get is whatever amount the deceased spouse was receiving or would have received at the time of his or her death. You must also be at least 60 years old. Keep in mind that if you start taking your benefits before you have reached full retirement age, which is currently age 66, the amount will be reduced. Last summer, the U.S. Supreme Court declared the federal definition of marriage unconstitutional. Ever since, the Department of Justice has been working with dozens of federal agencies to review their policies and regulations to make sure that they comply with the court's ruling. And again, this was from Reuters.
The next story is from the Associated Press. It's just one line. I guess it's a breaking story, and they don't have much news on it, but it's worthy of reporting. NATO is reporting that 6 service members have died in an aircraft crash in southern Afghanistan.
Oh, my God.
It says there is no fighting in the area, so I don't want to presume anything, but that's exactly what it says. NATO says 6 service members die in aircraft crash in southern Afghanistan, no fighting in area. Again, obviously a developing story out of Afghanistan.
For tens of thousands of Americans, the race to complete Obamacare enrollments is on. Just under a week from today, by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on December 23rd, anyone seeking health insurance coverage effective January the 1st must have completed an application, chosen a plan, and transmitted that enrollment form to their selected issuer. The deadline looms large for the roughly 1.9 million people who have made it deep into the process, completing an application and receiving an eligibility determination, but not yet selected a particular plan. Many of these customers have been hamstrung by glitches and delays at every turn and are simply stuck in limbo. Only 365,000 Americans had successfully signed up for plans in the state or federal insurance marketplaces through November the 30th.
All right, that's all the time we have for News Bites. Remember, we do this show each weekday morning so that you can catch up on the news from around the world, around the nation, and around the state. We abbreviate the news, get as many stories as we can in about a 20 or 25-minute segment, and it's also an opportunity for you as a business person to advertise in a way that is really attracting a large audience. We got a large following listening to the News Bites segment. We appreciate that. And if you'd like to advertise on this or any segment on WOCA's broadcast day, give us a call at 732-8000. Speak to one of our sales executives. They'll tell you how it's done. Or you might want to come in and sit across the desk from one of our sales executives. Our offices and studios are located just outside of the Paddock Mall food court. We're in the mall, actually, technically, but you don't need to go into the mall to find us. Don't go to the food court because we're outside the doors.
Yes.
How many stories today, Robin?
22.
Not bad, 22. All right, we will take a little break. Carol Ann Baldwin is up next. We'll be right back.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.